Bible. And we're in Ephesians chapter 6. We're looking at verses 5 through 9. 5 through 9. Let me get this turned up so you can hear me. Okay. 5 through 9. And it's sort of entitled Slaves and Slave Owners and stuff. Of course, scripturally, that's dealing with indentured servitude. So it's really employer versus employee. And that's what we're looking at. We're going to look at Ephesians chapter 6, verses 5 through 9. How should a Christian act in the workplace? Now, this is the second time we're trying to do this. Did this a couple weeks ago. I think Rumble was having some issues, or I was having some Wi-Fi issues. And so the audio was really not in sync. So I'm trying this again solo this time. So we'll see what we can do. So here we go. If you are watching on Rumble at D. Lewis Fuller, maybe we'll be changing to Coffee in the Bible as the location. But if you're on Rumble, then you can put into the messenger, onto the live chat, or into the comments if you want to join and talk about how you can be a Christian in the workplace. And you can just put in your email. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then, and this is for everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, X, Locals, Facebook, and soon to be Parlor and a few other places. If you're watching, then you can go ahead and email me at dlewisfuller@pm.me. Give me and let me know that you want to join to talk about this, and I'll get you right in. I'll send you an invite, and you can join me, and we can talk about this. Of course, if you want anything that's deeper, this is a casual conversation about God. If you listen to any of my videos, you'll see that when I was pastoring, you have the preaching on Sunday, and you have series, and you go through exegesis on different books of the Bible, going through the whole thing, and all these things that you do. Also Also, Wednesdays or Thursday evenings where you have deeper studies, where we actually did college credit for theology and stuff with partnering Bible college. And but what I liked the most was when I did the personal home visits, and I'd visit with somebody, and I'd have this one lady up in New York where she would want me to come by so she could have coffee and pie. And a lot of people are like, well, you really shouldn't eat so much pie. You're going to gain so much weight. But she didn't like to hear that. So if I didn't come by to visit her so she could give me the pie and we could talk about God and go through scripture, then she would come into the church early, and she was like 95, and she'd come in early and she'd say, Pastor, I hid the pie and la, 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 right? And then I'd know where to get the pie, and or cookies, or homemade brittle or whatever. And I really enjoyed that. That conversation where you don't go super deep and you just go through some verses and you make it applicable to life while you're just like family getting together kind of atmosphere, that is the basis for Coffee in the Bible. So it's a casual conversation about God. We're going to go through the whole Bible. And then once we get through the whole Bible, whenever we finish with that, then we'll start going through it systematically, like a systematic theology study, but still casual conversation. So we'll keep it that way. If you want more, and for some reason I'm getting a lot of emails, so I'll have to check my emails real quick. If you are, let me check my emails, because maybe it's somebody wanting to join. Or just, I don't get any emails ever, and then watch me get a ton of emails right now. A lot of emails, but not what I'm looking for. I'm also on the HOA board, and I'm getting a lot of HOA stuff relating to the fact that some of the common area was still in the developer's name from 10 years ago, and so we're working that out. That's something different. A lot of emails about that. All right. So if you want to join in, that I'll do the email one more time. D. Lewis Fuller, Lewis, at pm.me. And you can join in. We can talk about Christianity in the workplace. Also, depending on how it goes, I was trying to do it earlier today, but my wife and I were going to do a study on marriage. Again, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 21 to the end of the chapter, 32. And we're going to talk about Christian marriage, and we're going to talk about how that relates. She has a marriage booklet that she kept for when we went through, when we got married. And it sort of goes through things like finances and relationships and how to talk through problems and all that stuff. And so she has that out of a marriage class that we participated in, and she's going to add some of that stuff. So we're going to try to talk about Christian marriage. What is it from the Bible's perspective? And then how do we live that out? And so my goal is to have the reason I've been trying to do this for a month, literally every day for a month. And every time I have it set up, either the internet's not working right, Rumble's having some issues, or because my wife is works at a restaurant, she works someplace else. She also is a caterer. She's a professional chef and baker. And so we've been doing a lot of events and birthdays and anniversaries and taste testings and baby showers and all of these things. So we've been sort of really busy, but if you want to participate, my goal is to have my wife and I and 3 other couples. So I can have as many as 9 people on the live. And so that's my goal. My wife and I to be here. She's going to actually be live on her live off her channel, Fun with Dory. So rumble.com/funwithdory. Mostly she puts up things like traveling, and we've been to Arizona and Ecuador and Philippines, and she's been to Paris. And so mostly it's that type of stuff, but she's going to go live to talk about marriage on her stream, and I'll be going live. And so we're trying to do both those together. And I've got 2 other couples that I'm really trying to participate. And so if they participate, it probably will be Sunday. Tentatively, I have it listed that we will do the marriage one in Ephesians 5. Tentatively, that will be Thursday, probably 11 a.m. So Thursday, 11 a.m. If you want to participate, that's my tentative goal. If I do get the other couples locally here in South Carolina, then we'll be doing it Sunday. So it'll either be Thursday or Sunday. I'll know for sure tomorrow, and which day I'll end up doing it. And then I will put out notices on Locals, Rumble, Facebook, X. X didn't go through. I'm going to share this to X later. For some reason, X did not go through. I'm going to have to check with Rumble tech support to find out why X is not actually, unless I have to disconnect it and reconnect it. Maybe that's what I have to do. I'll try that first, and if that doesn't work, I'll try to contact tech support on that. Anyway, so I'll let everybody know when it'll be. If you want to participate and you are married and you want to jump into that, then I'm going to give it to you one more time. D. Lewis Fuller, Lewis, Fuller at pm.me. It's like more emails than I want to know about. I don't even know what that one is. No, it's not coming up. Anyway, so if you want to participate in the marriage one, it'll either be Thursday or Sunday. If it's Sunday, I can only take 1 extra couple. If it's Thursday, I can take 3 couples. So if you want to participate, you can do that. Right now, we're going to talk about being a Christian in the workplace. This is my second attempt at going through this study. And because it's just not cooperating between the internet, Wi-Fi, the app for Rumble Studio, which is a great app. I was having issues. All right. Also, Thursday afternoon at 4. So Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. at 4 p.m. My brother, who joins me from another location in South Carolina, we're going to be on, and we're going to be talking about spiritual warfare. So that'll be on Ephesians 6:10 through the end of the chapter. And I don't know how much of that chapter we're going to get to, because there's a lot in the spiritual warfare. You have the armor of Christ. You have the fact of how you fight the battle, and everything that we've been talking about in Ephesians has been building up to the idea of spiritual warfare. We've approached the whole book of Ephesians the way you would when you prepare for war. You go to basic training, you go to your technical school, you go to combat training, and all those things before you actually go to the battlefield. And we often think about only Ephesians 6, that one, starting in verse 10 and on, as an address of the spiritual warfare that we go through as Christians. But we've approached the whole study of Ephesians as a spiritual warfare, and the preparation that you have to do, of course. So the study that you'd have, like today, on being a Christian in the workplace, that would relate within that process of preparing for spiritual warfare, as in, how do you relate to your team members? How do you relate to, like in a battle, how do you relate to your team members? How do you relate to those in charge of you? How well do you work together as a team? And is Christ the center of that from a Christian's perspective? So if you get into as we look at the spiritual warfare, how that's a fight against principalities and dark places and high places and all this stuff. It's not really flesh and blood. It's not, we think our battles with the person next to us, or we think our battles with somebody in another faith tradition on social media, on X. We're going to argue with somebody about something, and we think that's our spiritual battle, but it's not. It's really against spiritual darkness, and we probably should try to find more common ground with people, even if we don't agree 100%, that are believers in Jesus Christ, so that we can fight the spiritual battle, not just for us, but our family, our kids, our descendants, our community, our country, the world, right? So, and that's really what it's about. So from that perspective, that'll be Thursday at 4:00. Me and my brother will be on there. If you want to join to talk about spiritual warfare, Thursday at 4, send me an email. I'll give it to you one more time. DLewis@pm.me. I'm just giving it a lot because I'm really hoping that we get some people that might be willing to come join us on the podcast. So today it's just singular. It's just me by myself, because I've been having a lot of technical issues. So I'm hoping that if this goes nice, then I know that on Thursday or Sunday, when we do the one on marriage, when we have maybe as many as 9 people, or at least 2, then that'll go well. And then, of course, Thursday evening with my brother, and we'll jump into spiritual warfare, which again, it's, there's several verses, 13 verses, and probably won't cover all of it in one setting. So the spiritual warfare one will actually probably run at least two different podcasts. But let's just jump in. Didn't mean to give all that. I didn't really waste, but I've been talking 14 minutes. But I really wanted to promote both of those other studies, because that's a lot. I've not done anything in about a month. Well, a couple weeks ago, we attempted this one, and this is my second attempt on this one. And then Thursday afternoon, we're looking at starting the spiritual warfare. Hopefully Thursday morning or Sunday afternoon, we'll be doing marriage. Anyway, you've got the email. If you're watching this, I've put it up several times. If you don't have it, you can message me and I can send it to you privately or whatever. So we're going to be jumping into, let me check my emails one more time. Seems like I'm getting a lot of emails. No, nobody wanting to jump in. All right, so I got my phone ready. So if you're watching, you want to jump in and talk about living out your Christian life in the workroom and that relationship, Now is the time to do it. All right, so we're going to start in Ephesians chapter 6 and verses, I don't want to get too close to chapter 6, verse 5. Slaves, obey your human masters with respect and reverence, with sincerity of heart, as you would Christ. Not just under your master's eye as people pleasers, but as slaves of Messiah, doing God's will from the soul. Serve with a positive attitude as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that whatever good each one does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether slave or free. So, I guess the first thing, like I said, in the Bible, the term slave doesn't mean slave like we think of pre-Civil War in America in the 1860s. It's referencing to indentured servitude. Somebody would work for somebody, they owed a debt, maybe the family owed a debt, and they would work it off for 7 years. On the seventh year, the year of Jubilee, everybody would be released. So that debt is paid no matter what. And so that sort of carried on, and we see that through society as well, where people are indentured to somebody. In a way, if you have a mortgage, you're sort of indebted or you're enslaved in a way, like indentured servitude to the bank. It's not really yours. You're working toward it. Eventually, when you pay it off, it becomes yours. That's sort of the way indentured servitude worked. So for the purpose of today, we're going to look at it as a reference to the workplace. And here, so the slave would represent the employee. So everybody that's watching this is either a business owner, you're an employer, or you're an employee. So verses 5 through 8 really deal with the responsibility of the employee. And then, of course, the last verse has to do with the responsibility of the employer. So as the employee, I've read through verse 8. We're going to go back through that one verse at a time. I keep feeling like I'm missing something. Oh, yeah. So if you want to go any deeper than what we're talking about, like I said, this is more of a casual conversation. You can join me if you go to my Rumbles page, rumble.com/dlewisfuller, you'll see the red join button. You can join me and join my community on Locals. Locals, I can go live as well. So if you want to go deeper into an exegesis, go into language study, any of that systematically, then that's where I'll do that. I'll set up a live there, and whoever wants to participate can participate. So that's sort of like what we're doing there. I think that's all for right now. All right. So let's jump back into this. I'm going to check my emails one more time because just in case. No, more about the HOA. That's all good. All right. So if you're an employee, how should you act as a Christian? Now it says, slaves, obey your human masters with respect and reverence, with sincerity of heart, as you would Christ. Okay, so we take one verse at a time. So if you're an employee, how should you react to your employer? Well, one, they shouldn't ask you to do something that is against your against how you feel morally. Like if you have a religious objection or sincerely held religious belief, you should be able to state that. And like, I don't want to work Sundays because I want to be in church or something like that. You should be able to work that, and most employers will work with you on things like that. If you're up front, if you're not up front, then maybe they won't be. You can't always be late. You can't any of those things. I always approached my when I was raised, my dad instilled me that you work every job you ever have, no matter if you like it or not, as if it's the best job in the world, and you're going to be there forever, and you love it. And even the worst jobs, the ones I hated the most, I always approached it from that perspective, that it was the best job ever, and I loved it, and I was going to do my best. And your attitude changes. I know that when I approached any job, even the bad ones, that way, I really felt like I liked the job. Like, this is a great job. I could do this for and some of them didn't pay great, and I knew I couldn't stay there forever. as I was, getting out of the military and trying to go through school and take care of my kids, and working my way up to that professional job, which, I eventually get, and then that's great, right? That's great. But in the process to get there, you may have to work jobs you don't like, and that's okay. The attitude that you have really is important, because if you approach it like it sucks and it's a horrible job and you hate it, then you're going to be miserable. You'll make everybody around you miserable. You won't get good reviews. And if there's an opportunity within that job to move up and make more money, you won't get it. They'll bypass you. So you might want to focus on that a little bit. And that was how I was raised. That's how I raised my kids. You work every job like it's the best job, and it's the only job you're ever going to have, and da 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 da. And we would do that, and your whole attitude is different. You get to where maybe you don't mind that job so much. Anyway, here, verse 5, you're to consider it that you respect your employer. How can you show respect? Well, you can show respect by how you speak to them. Your interactions that way, not hiding behind, out of sight of the cameras and be on your phone. That's probably not a good way to respect your employer. You're supposed to also do it with a sincerity of heart. Be sincere. Be honest. Do your best to make it something that, who knows? Maybe you won't only be there a short time, but you need to consider, what if you're not? What if you're there a longer time? And you need a good reference for for another job that might be better. You need a good reference from this job. So you've got to work with that mentality. And as a Christian, you most definitely should work with that mentality. And getting a lot of emails, just not the ones I'm looking for. But it's okay. It's okay. All right, moving on, verse 4. Verse 6. Not just you're to do it with a sincere of heart, with respect, reverence as you would to Christ, not just under your master's eye as people pleasers, but as a slave to Messiah, a slave to Christ, doing God's will from the soul. Yep, and that's more of what I said. Don't just try to do the right thing when the boss is watching you, because depending on where you work, there may be cameras that you don't know about, and you think that you're hiding, and the boss is coming, so I'm gonna straighten up, I'm gonna look nice, I'm gonna do my job, I'm gonna look like I'm super busy. And then as soon as they're gone, you're gonna loaf and pick up your phone and start playing on your phone. As a Christian, you should want to do your job as if your boss is always watching you, because God is always watching you. So you're also trying to show God that you're being responsible and that you're living up to godly principles. So I think that's important. So not just under your master's eye as people pleasers, but as slaves for Christ, doing God's will from your very soul. You should be passionate about it. Like I said, I've had jobs that I really didn't like. I could go into jobs. I was raised doing like construction roofing with my dad, so I had some roofing jobs that I didn't really care for. I had jobs where I had to clean up after people had died, and you had to go sterilize the houses, and I hated that. Jobs in department stores and hardware stores and all these things that were okay, and I could have been miserable, but instead I made the best out of it. I was passionate about it. I tried to have good work relationships with the coworkers. Now, in relating all of this back to spiritual warfare, as a Christian, we are going to have spiritual warfare. We're going to battle with spiritual darkness in high places. It's not the people around us. We may get really irritated with people around us. There may be jerks that we work with, but the reality is our enemy isn't those people. Our enemy is spiritual. And if you're in a work environment and you find other Christians there as you are preparing, ultimately for spiritual warfare, then those are the people that you might want to build relationships with, not the partiers. I mean, it's more fun to build relationships with those people, but maybe build it with the people that you as you're finding out that they're Christians. I know I had a job that I really didn't like, delivering uniforms while I was at seminary. And in the morning before I'd go, I'd pray. I had one other guy that was a Christian. We'd pray before we go out. And then pretty soon there was 2 or 3. And then one guy who would come over and mock us because we'd get there way early, like at 4, start loading our trucks. We'd have everything all ready to go. And then when other people started coming in so they could load, we're already loaded. We're just waiting for the meeting before we could leave. And so we'd have the meeting, we'd come back out. While they're loading the trucks, we're having a little prayer meeting. And one guy would come up and he would pick on us and hit you in the back of the head and all this stuff. And being a military veteran, somebody acting that way, you want to do something physical back, but you're also trying to pray, so you want to be a good example that way. And I remember he had an issue. I think his mom was sick, and he came up quietly one morning and asked if we'd pray for his mom, and we did. And I'm not sure how, that was a long time ago. I don't really remember, like 20 years ago. I don't really remember how that actually turned out. But I do remember that after that day, he attended the prayer meeting. He got there early. He started working hard. He'd finish his route early. And he made sure he was there for prayer every day after that. So, I think from a spiritual battle thing, we should treat every job very passionately, like we love it, even if we don't, and use every opportunity, Scripture says, to do good. Every opportunity should be an opportunity to do good, right? And who knows? In that case, we had somebody that started attending the prayer meeting, and what started out to be just 2 of us turned out to be like 7, which in that setting, that's like 90% of the route drivers were making it to prayer meeting before we took off for the day, which was a really crappy job, really, to be honest. And but it changed the mood of the people that worked there. So in a spiritual battle, we should never see anybody as an adversary that is part of our team. Unfortunately, in churches, I was thinking about this as I was saying it. In churches, a lot of times, the biggest adversaries that you have in physical people seem to be within the church and not necessarily out in the streets. It's not the unbeliever so much. A lot of times, it's the believer within the walls of the church. And we need to realize that we are collectively fighting a spiritual war together. And we should be passionate about those relationships. We should be passionate, but we should also realize that we need to be an example for Christ. And so I could have given in to the taunting of that one guy at that delivery service in Fort Worth, Texas. I'll say that much. And I could have given in to my emotion to want to say something back. But instead, we kept on keeping on, and eventually he saw that what we had was real and he wanted to participate. So you've got that, right? So again, normally my brother is with me. I'm going to be back with my brother on spiritual warfare on Thursday afternoon at 4:00. So if you want to jump in on spiritual warfare, I've given my email several times. So if you watch this start to finish, you'll see my email a lot at the beginning, first 10 minutes, really. All right, we're going to keep going. Serve with a positive attitude as to the Lord and not to men. knowing that whatever good each one does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether slave or free. Work by giving 100%, the same way you would give back to God. So whether that is in the workplace, okay, so we to be able to have that prayer meeting, we would meet like 30 to 45 minutes earlier so we could load the trucks before the meeting. So we had the prayer meeting while everybody else is loading the trucks. And those that joined in, which again, was about 90% by the end of it, by the time I graduated seminary and went on in my professional career, they would, they'd see that we would give 100% because we'd get there early, we'd load, we'd be ready to go, we'd do the meeting, we had the prayer, we get out there, we hustle. We were the first ones back. So I think that was part of what was contagious. Like, how can these guys get here so early, be in such a good mood, and they finish their jobs early and stuff? So you work hard as if you're working for God. And I always said that was probably my biggest thing that I passed on to my kids. You work like you're working for God. Every job, you're working for God. And if you're in a church, you might not be the pastor or the music minister, youth, or children's minister. You might not be a paid staff member. You might just be a church member who volunteers to teach Sunday school or help out with youth or whatever. You do that, whatever that is. And it's different with different people. Some people, like with me, I think when I volunteer, I do better than when I get a paycheck. It seems like it's a lot harder. When you have that thing over the weight on your shoulders, like it's a job and you have to be careful of this and you can't say this. And there are certain things and restrictions you have to think about in that setting. But in reality, if you're doing it, you're volunteering of your time, you're doing it for the purpose of whatever that is. And so if you're in church and you're volunteering and you're helping with ministries and there's needs and the church says, hey, we need somebody to help here. Maybe you want to help with a particular ministry, but they need help with security. And maybe you have a background in military and they're like, well, we really need somebody in security. And you have the background in military to where you could help with security, but that's not the ministry you want to do. So you're not going to want to do it and you're not going to do anything because you're just going to be a bump on the log. I would just say, maybe if you start helping in the area where they need you, maybe when the area comes open where you want to be, you've already proven yourself to that church staff of how dependable and godly you are, that you would obviously be the choice for that position at a later time. And maybe when you move into it at a later time, that's when God might want you to really be there. And if God really wants you there at that time, maybe that's when you'll be doing the best. And I just lost my screen. There we go. Blacked out for a minute. I don't know if it blacked out on the video, but it blacked out for me. I lost my screen, went to space saver for a minute there. Anyway, so, and I would say that, jump into where you're needed at church and do it as if you're doing it for Christ. Don't do it for the person that asked you. Don't do it for the pastor. Don't do it for what it might appear to be. You do that and you volunteer at that job and you do it like it's the best thing you've ever done, and you do it with passion, and you do it because you're doing it for God, right? That's how you would transpose that, I guess, to spiritual warfare within your church. Because, it's weird as that is, there's a lot of infighting in the church. And why is the church so ineffective for sharing Christ? I think it's because the church is too busy fighting each other to go out and fight a spiritual battle with darkness for the souls of the lost. And then the souls of the lost, those people, they're going to die and they'll go to hell. And when maybe you should have spent a little extra time trying to reach them for Christ, right? So anyway, I do feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I think it's all good. I'm hoping that it's clear. We got some people watching. If you're watching, you can put a note in the live chat and let me know your thoughts about this topic. So you know, I'm just giving you what the scripture says. I'm relating it to real life experiences I have had. The advice that I give my kids, they've all followed it. They all work really hard. They're all very successful. And so there's that. The last one, verse 9, is, and I'm almost out of coffee. So when I'm out of coffee, it's time to end my coffee in the Bible. Anyway, verse 9 is from the employer standpoint. If you're the business owner, you're the employer. You've got people working for you. Some will work really hard, some won't. But as a Christian, how do you handle that as a Christian? And then we'll also look from the standpoint of if you are a Christian leader, if you're a ministry staff, how do you deal with the people in your church? So verse 9, and masters or employers, treat your slaves or employees in the same way. So everything I just said, working as if it's the best thing you ever did, work passionately, do it as if you're working for God. Paul says the same thing to the employer. So, and I know this to be true. So if you have employees and you treat them poorly, you're not going to have employees. You may have a company and you may get a lot of contracts and you got team leaders and everything seems to be going good. But if you're not a good employer and you don't treat those employees right, then they're going to leave you. And if you don't have people, then the contracts aren't going to do you any good, and you're going to lose contracts and you're going to lose credibility in the community. So, as a Christian, you should work hard. Don't work hard only when your employees see you. You know, there was another job when I was at Bible college, and we're loading trucks. Like if you ever loaded UPS trucks or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And we had a supervisor that would just yell and scream. Boxes so high, boxes falling off the conveyor belt, boxes falling off the truck. So many boxes going to the wrong location. We were always the last belt to finish, and they fired him. Okay, and I went into this area, and it was that bad. And they had another guy that they moved up, who was the supervisor. In one day, I swear, in one day, he would jump into the truck with you. He would climb up on the belt and work the sorter. In one day, we went from the worst belt in a hub to the number one belt in the hub. We went from the dirtiest at the end of the night to the cleanest. We went from the most errors to zero errors. And we did it in one day. One day made the difference. And the only difference was we had the same volume. I would almost guess, like I said, it's a long time ago, but I would almost guess that the volume was either the same or worse. Yet, at the end of the day, we did the best in the whole hub. And the only difference was the first manager was a manager that yelled at us, and that's all he did. And the second manager jumped into the trucks with us and helped us when we got behind. And the thing is, we respected him and we worked harder. And the harder we worked, the harder he worked. And there was incentives and all this stuff. So it was a two-way street. We worked hard for him because he showed us that he cared about us. So if you're an employer and you show that your people that you care for them, they'll work hard for you. And as a Christian leader, as a pastor, if you show the people in your church that you care for them, well, I do. I show them I care. I preach. I teach. I do these things. But if people can't come into your office and sit and talk to you, if somebody invites you to lunch and you have time but you just don't want to do it, like if you're keeping this distance as if you're on some pedestal, then don't be surprised when people leave your church and they go somewhere else. You have to be obtainable. They have to see that you care. They have to see that you work hard for them. And then they will in turn work hard for you. You need people to serve in different areas. Well, lead by example. So that's what he's saying. So, and masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Stop using threats, knowing that the master of them and of you too is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. And on that, I close up the Bible, right? What a great way to end that. He says, employers, don't make threats to people. The guy that yelled and yelled and yelled and yelled at that loading the trucks, he got fired because yelling didn't get him anywhere. The other guy didn't yell at all, came in and helped. Said, don't make threats, but you work hard because the person that's over you is God. And I would just like to remind you as a Christian, whether in church or whether in a job or your own employment, as we walk this life, I read a thing earlier today, and it said that Scripture promised that a Redeemer would come, and he came. Promised that he died, that he'd rise again, and it happened. And when he left to go up into heaven, he said he's coming back. And so just because it's been a long time, 2,000 years, doesn't mean that's not going to come true too. The day will come, and I feel like it's soon, but only time will tell, that he will come back. He made that promise. When in Matthew 24, he gives an illustration of bridesmaids, 10 of them, 5 had oil enough to wait, and 5 didn't. 5 ran out. And when the 5 that ran out, they had to go out and buy some more oil. And while they were gone buying the oil, the groom came and picked up the bridesmaids and took them to the banquet. And when the other ones came back, he had already come and gone. And they're pounding on the door of the banquet and pounding on the door. And he says, I don't even know who you are. Don't be those that get left. Be part of those that are ready when he comes back. Work every day as if it's your last, but work every day as if he's coming back in the future, but work it as if he's coming back today. Because we don't know. And ultimately, the Great Commission in Matthew 28 was to share Christ with everybody, starting locally and then spreading out more and more to the whole world. And if there's anybody in the circle of travel that you go to that doesn't know Christ, don't be embarrassed. Share Christ with them. You might be the only example of Jesus they ever see or hear. Maybe be careful the jokes you tell at lunch. You might be the only Jesus that they ever come across. And on social media, I didn't mean to get all somber and stuff, but on social media, I like debating too. I mean, everybody does, I guess. And I'll do it with people that don't agree with me, people that do agree with me. But you got to be careful. Ultimately, maybe try to spend more time sharing Christ than winning an argument. And I guess I'm really thinking about myself because I like doing that too much. But anyway, that's all I got for today on coffee and the Bible. And again, I'm hoping that I didn't mean for it to run 45 minutes long, but it's a long one today. I really, honestly, when I did it, I thought it was going to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes long. I thought it was, because it's only 4 verses, so I thought it was just going to be in and out really quick. But I prayed about it before I did it. I think God gave me a lot of things to say. I hope I didn't ramble too much. That's why I like having other people here. When my brother's here, we bounce things off each other, and it seems to flow a lot smoother. So But occasionally, I will do a study by myself. And this one, because we had so much trouble last time, I just wanted to knock it out before we jump into spiritual warfare on Thursday afternoons at 4 o'clock. You can log in to see that. You can let me know, and I'll send you a link, and you can participate. The more people, I think, the more interesting the conversation can be. My phone keeps going off and off and off, and hopefully it's not. Yeah, it's not. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap this up. Like I said, it's 45 minutes. I didn't want to go more than that, so that I've reached that. We've had people come and go. So if you're watching this live or you watch this later after it's recorded, we're going to try to do another study on marriage Thursday morning or Sunday afternoon. And we're going to start probably a 2-week series on specifically spiritual warfare, which is the last part of Ephesians 6:10 through 23 on Thursday afternoon with my brother. And if you want to join, it'll be with you too. So until then, this has been D. Lewis Fuller with Coffee and the Bible.